Chapter 30-32. Eat my ass. Eat by yourself. They didn't do anything at all. Could it be that they wanted a share of the benefits? Not to mention that the family Nangong had received Luo Qingtong's orders, it was impossible for them to do anything to the family Ji's people. Even if there was no such thing, he wouldn't let these people have their way. Therefore, without thinking, he directly led a group of family Nangong's people to block in front of them. Seeing this, Yuan Qinggang and the others were furious. They couldn't be bothered with anything else and directly attacked the family Nangong's people. Nangong Fu, you asked for this. Open up all the family Nangong's people. As Yuan Qinggang said this, he secretly instructed his trusted subordinates to find a good opportunity to kill the family Nangong's people. At that time, the family Nangong's people would be like a group of dragons without a leader. Their Yuan clan's people would take a step further and even swallow the family Nangong. As he thought this, he suddenly smiled with a sinister expression. Right at this moment, a faint voice that sounded like a smile that was not a smile sounded. "What's so lively? What are all of you doing?" Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She came out of Ji Yuankuan's room and saw this scene. She crossed her arms and leaned against the door of Ji Yuankuan's room, looking at the hostile scene in the martial arts arena. The family Nangong's people were stunned, then they hurriedly cried out in surprise. "Miss Xiaoqi." The family Nangong's face was filled with surprise. He didn't expect Luo Qingtong to return so quickly. He thought that it would take some time for her to chase after Ji Yuankuan, but in the end she returned in such a short time. As the family Nangong's people thought this, they were inexplicably shocked. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that Luo Qingtong was actually an expert at the 9th level of the Purple Venerable Realm. And she had directly increased her strength in the battle with Ji Yuankuan, the initial stage of the human martial arts realm. How old is Lady Xiaoqi? Most likely, even the direct disciples of the 6-star domain couldn't compare to her, not to mention her strength. She directly scared Ji Yuankuan, an expert close to the 6th level of the mortal martial realm, to the point that he covered his head and ran away like a rat. No matter how many times they thought about it, the head of the family Nangong and the others were still in disbelief. And now, the appearance of the young girl had given them a backbone. It wasn't that the family Nangong people weren't panicking. After all, they were far weaker than Yuan Qinggang and the others. No one could guarantee that Yuan Qinggang and the others would not suddenly have evil intentions and kill them along with Ji Feiyu and the others. Now that Luo Qingtong was back, it was great. They didn't know why, but when they saw Luo Qingtong's slim and tall figure, their hearts calmed down. It was an indescribable feeling. It was as if with her appearance, all the dangers were no longer dangers. When Luo Qingtong appeared, Yuan Qinggang and the others were also shocked. Then he frowned slightly and looked at Luo Qingtong. "Lady Xiaoqi, this matter has nothing to do with you. Please step aside." Yuan Qinggang's words were very arrogant. In his heart, Luo Qingtong was still a young girl at the Sage Master realm. It was just that she had an expert at the initial stage of the mortal martial realm behind her. Although he wasn't afraid of her, he thought that she might have other identities behind her. Therefore he spoke to Luo Qingtong respectfully and addressed her as Lady Xiaoqi. However, when he asked her to step aside, it was abnormally stiff and cold. Chapter 30-33. When he spoke, Luo Qingtong chuckled. Then she looked at him and said indifferently, "What if I don't step aside?" Luo Qingtong had already appeared in Ji Yuankuan's room when Yuan Qinggang and the others appeared in the family Ji. She saw everything but did not say anything. She wanted to see what the family Nangong would choose. Obviously, the answer did not disappoint her. When Luo Qingtong spoke, Yuan Qinggang's face suddenly darkened. He looked at Luo Qingtong and said coldly, "Luo Xiaoqi, don't go too far. This is the Dongting region. It's not a place where you can do whatever you want. You only have one guard in the early stage of the human martial arts realm. He is not with you now. And I have more than one warrior in the early stage of the human martial arts realm with me. I advise you not to meddle in other people's business." If possible, Yuan Qinggang naturally did not want to provoke Luo Qingtong. After all, everyone knew that the family Ji's downfall was entirely caused by Luo Qingtong. This mysterious girl directly pulled down Ji Yuankuan, Ji Fighting, and the others as soon as she came to the Dongting region. If it were not for her actions, they would probably still be fooled by Ji Yuankuan and Ji Fighting's methods. Therefore Yuan Qinggang was still somewhat afraid of Luo Qingtong. But that was all. He would never give in to the family Ji this time. Now the family Ji was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. If they did not do anything, the family Nangong would benefit. How could Yuan Qinggang tolerate this? Therefore, even if he risked defending Luo Qingtong, he would take over the family Ji. As for if she wanted to make trouble for him. If the power behind the other party really allowed her to do whatever she wanted, then she wouldn't have just brought along a human martial realm initial stage guard. He could easily destroy the family Ji with a simple move. Why would he need the other party to do it himself? Perhaps the human martial realm guard beside her was just lucky and coincidentally met with some opportunity to advance. There was no power behind him at all. Thinking of this, Yuan Qinggong's tone became colder and harsher. It even carried a clear threat. Oh, is that so? Then I'm really scared. Luo Qingtong smiled and looked at them. Then she tilted her head and said, but what should we do? I've already promised Ji Feiyu that I will help them. Isn't it a bad idea to go back on your word? Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, Yuan Qinggong's face was full of contempt. He looked at Luo Qingtong. As expected, the other party did not have any confidence. It was also because Ji Yuanquan and the others were stupid. If they had directly killed the other party, there wouldn't be so much trouble. But fortunately, Ji Yuanquan and the others did not do so. Otherwise, how could he and the others have picked up such a big advantage today? Thinking of this, he suddenly felt very satisfied. He said to Luo Qingtong, what's the big deal? Ji Feiyu, that trash. If it weren't for you, he wouldn't have been able to return to the family Ji. You've already helped him deal with Ji Yuanquan and Ji fighting. That's already a great kindness. You don't need to continue helping them. Of course, Miss Xiaoqi, if you really have a conscience, I can promise you to spare their lives. But that's all. Chapter 30-34. Yuan Qinggang said in a tone that sounded as if he was doing them a favor. In any case, Ji Feiyu and Ji Yuanqing were recognized as trash and useless in the Dongting region. So what if he spared their lives? Could it be that they could flip the heavens? However, just as his voice fell, Luo Qingtong's voice became clearer and clearer as she laughed. She leaned forward and backward as she laughed, then raised her head to look behind him and said, did you hear that? Feiyu, uncle, the Yuan family head is really generous. You have to thank him properly. As soon as Luo Qingtong's words came out, Yuan Qinggong's face suddenly froze. Then he suddenly turned his head and saw Ji Feiyu and Ji Yuanqing slowly standing up from the ground. Boom. In an instant, extremely powerful strength lingered around the two of them. In just an instant, Yuan Qinggang was speechless. Level 6 of the human martial realm? Just entered the human martial realm? He looked at Ji Feiyu and Ji Yuanqing's strength in disbelief. Especially when he saw Ji Feiyu's level 6 human martial realm strength, he almost couldn't believe his eyes. If Ji Yuanqing's cultivation had been hindered for some reason these years, so he suddenly rose to the early stage of the human martial realm after accumulating enough strength, he could still understand. But what was with Ji Feiyu's level 6 human martial realm strength? How could his strength have risen to such a level? Wasn't he just a trash who couldn't cultivate? It was not just Yuan Qinggang. Even the patriarchs of the various clans behind him cried out in disbelief when they saw this scene. For so many years, Ji Feiyu had always lived in their eyes with the identity of a useless person. But at this moment, Yi Xiwen's strength had risen to the 6th level of the human martial realm in an instant. It was simply too dazzling. What was going on? How was this possible? Many questions lingered in the minds of the crowd, but there was no answer to any of them. On the contrary, Yuan Qinggang looked at the collapsed family Ji people on the ground and a thought flashed through his mind. Then he held his breath and said in disbelief, You guys actually used the evil method of blood sacrifice to transfer the family Ji people's strength into your bodies? As he said this, he had already figured it out in the blink of an eye. No wonder the family Ji people were lying on the ground dispiritedly. Could it be that Ji Yuanqing and Ji Feiyu were seriously injured and recuperating? In fact, they were simply increasing their strength and refining the strength of their bodies. And as he clamored in his heart that they had used evil methods, he wanted to call on everyone to resist them and kill them here. The family Nangong family head's proud voice rang out. That's right, you guessed right. It's the power of blood sacrifice. Unfortunately, it was Ji Yuanquan who used the evil method first, but it was broken by Miss Xiaoqi. Then, the power of the evil method was transferred to Ji Feiyu and Ji Yuanqing, who had the same bloodline as him and were harmed by him. Yuan Qinggang, you didn't expect this, did you? Ji Feiyu and his father will turn this misfortune into a blessing. Not only have they recovered the strength they lost for so many years, but they have also broken through to the human martial realm. Chapter 30-35. The power of the sixth level of the human martial realm. Oh my god. Miss Shaoqi's move was really too powerful. The head of the family Nangong and Yuan Qinggang said that Ji Feiyu and Ji Yuanqing had profited from a disaster and happened to obtain the power of the family Ji that Ji Yuanquan had sacrificed. In fact, he was very clear that this was most likely done by Luo Qingtong. Otherwise, how could it be so coincidental? Luo Qingtong asked Ji Feiyu and Ji Yuanqing for 2 drops of blood and flicked it into the array. Ji Feiyu and Ji Yuanqing had obtained the power of the blood sacrifice and also cut off the connection between Ji Yuanquan and the blood sacrifice array. Miss Shaoqi's ability was really unpredictable. The head of the family Nangong thought so and his heart was filled with reverence. When Yuan Qinggang heard the head of the family Nangong's words, his heart was about to go crazy. He originally thought that if Luo Qingtong and Ji Yuanqing had used the evil method, he could expose this matter and let everyone chase after Luo Qingtong and Ji Yuanqing. This way he could escape this disaster. He didn't expect that this evil method was actually done by Ji Yuanquan. That idiot. Using the evil method could benefit others, and it was even his mortal enemy who had benefited. Was he stupid enough to die? Yuan Qinggang's heart collapsed, but he still refused to give up. He looked at the head of the family Nangong and the others and said in a dying struggle, "You are the ones who are talking. Who knows if this is true or not?" That's right. Who knew if this was true or not? Ji Yuanquan was already dead and there was no proof at all. At that time, as long as they insisted that it was Ji Feiyu and Ji Yuanqing who used the evil method and the family Nangong people were accomplices, they could still easily deal with them. However, just as he was thinking this, he heard Ji Feiyu's cold voice ring out. "There are hundreds of people in my family, Ji. All of them are here. Anyone can check them. We won't feel guilty." As soon as the words left his mouth, Yuan Qinggang remembered that the hundreds of people who had been sacrificed to the family Ji were still alive. Instantly, his vision went black. This was like seeing a ghost. How could a person who had been sacrificed by an evil technique not die? Yet, the family Ji's people kept doing strange things again and again. As he thought of this, he immediately gritted his teeth and didn't dare to say another word. The hundreds of people in the family Ji who were still alive were the best witnesses. With them around, no one could touch Ji Feiyu, Ji Yuanqing, and the others at all. This was because Ji Feiyu and Ji Yuanqing did not initiate the evil art. Instead, it was a blessing in disguise. This would not be punished by the world at all. As Yuan Qinggang thought of this, he suddenly felt very depressed in his heart, so much so that he almost couldn't breathe. At this moment, Ji Feiyu's cold voice rang out again. "Since we've solved the problem of our strength, shouldn't we solve the problem between us now? Patriarch Yuan, you trespassed into our family Ji, insulted me and my father, and even attacked our benefactor. How are you going to explain this to us?" Ji Feiyu's voice was cold. He clenched his fists, almost unable to control the anger that was about to explode in his body. The fact that Yuan Qinggang was about to attack him and the family Ji did not arouse his anger at all. However, the anger that filled his chest at this moment was all because of his threats to Luo Qingtong. He actually dared to threaten Luo Qingtong. Chapter 30-36. As Ji Feiyu thought about it, the anger in his heart instantly reached its peak. Previously he was unable to move at all during his cultivation. He could only listen to Yuan Qinggong's threats to Luo Qingtong. Even though he knew that with Luo Qingtong's strength she would never be threatened by him. But he was still enraged by Yuan Qinggong's disdain and arrogance towards Luo Qingtong, as well as his threats. Boom! The strength around him exploded in an instant. The power that entered his body through the blood sacrifice array had completely become a part of his body. Ji Feiyu had never been as happy as he was at this moment that his talent was much stronger than others. Because of this, the aura of power he received and the improvement of his strength far exceeded that of ordinary people. It allowed him to possess such tyrannical strength in such a short period of time. It allowed him to have a little bit of qualification to stand beside Luo Qingtong. But the person in front of him was reckless and dared to threaten Luo Qingtong. Who was he? How dare he threaten her? Ji Feiyu's face was gloomy and malicious. For the first time he, who was kind and gentle by nature, could not control his hostility and killing intent from the bottom of his heart. The way he looked at Yuan Qinggang was like that of a hungry wolf. His gaze made Yuan Qinggong's heart skip a beat. He could not help but say, No, we just want to seek justice from the family Ji. Don't you think so? As he spoke, he swallowed his saliva and looked at the people from the other families behind him. When the latter and the others heard his words, they immediately nodded and said yes. Ji Feiyu's current strength was not something they could afford to offend. The strength of LV6 of the human martial realm was considered a relatively strong warrior in the 6-star region. He was highly regarded by the major families. How old was Ji Feiyu at this time? Such strength was far more powerful than the direct descendants of the major families in the 6-star region. As the crowd thought so, they immediately wiped their cold sweat and felt very regretful. If they had known that Ji Feiyu would have such an opportunity, they would not have come to the family Ji even if they were beaten to death. It was really a mistake that caused everlasting sorrow. Everyone's foreheads were covered in cold sweat. Ji Feiyu looked at them with a cold smile and said softly, "Seek justice from the family Ji?" His eyes were slightly lowered. The silhouette of his beautiful eyelashes was like a butterfly's wings gently against his eyelids. As he sneered, they trembled gently. What does the family Ji owe you? The ones who owe you an explanation are clearly Ji Yuankuan and Ji Fighting. When they were here, why didn't you come to seek justice? Just say a few words and that's it. Now that they're gone, you're here to demand justice in such an aggressive manner, Yi Zichen said. Do I look like a scapegoat? Or do you think that I'm easier to bully than them and deliberately came to make things difficult for me? Yuan Qinggang and the others did not know what to say when they heard Ji Feiyu's words. They had originally thought that by using the excuse of seeking justice, Ji Feiyu and the others would not be able to do anything to them. After all, they had a good reason to do so. However, when they heard Ji Feiyu's question, they had a faint feeling that something was wrong. Indeed, Ji Yuankuan and Ji Fighting owed them justice. Not the family Ji and Ji Feiyu. Chapter 30-37. However, at this moment they were facing Ji Feiyu, whose strength and aura were completely overwhelming. It was so overwhelming that they found it difficult to even get close to him. They didn't dare to utter a single word. However, if they didn't say anything, it was equivalent to tacitly agreeing to let Ji Feiyu take the blame. They were deliberately humiliating him and wanted to deal with him. It was true that if they went forward they would die. If they went back they would die too. Only then did the people from the various clans realize what kind of situation they had dug their own graves into. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that they had dug their own graves. Their foreheads were dripping with sweat. As for Yuan Qinggang, his legs were shaking and he couldn't stand steadily. He looked at Ji Feiyu, who had a cold expression and didn't look gentle or kind at all. He regretted it more than once in his heart. What kind of terrifying demon had he awakened? The feeling that Ji Feiyu gave him right now was even more terrifying than the Wolf King that he had encountered when he was on the brink of death. His heart couldn't help but tremble. His mouth opened and closed, but he couldn't say anything. At this moment, Ji Feiyu's expression was indifferent as he said to them, "Since you can't say anything, I'll say it." His gaze was sharp as he said coldly, "I'll give you two choices now. Cripple your own strength or cripple your own limbs. If you crawl out of here, I'll let bygones be bygones. In addition, all of your family's assets will be handed over. They will belong to my family Ji. I won't say this a second time." Before he could finish his sentence, Yuan Qinggang was already panting violently and shouting at him, "No. No. Ji Feiyu, don't go too far." He was almost hysterical as he shouted at Ji Feiyu. Cripple their own strength or cripple their own limbs to crawl out of here and hand over all of their family's assets. What was the difference between that and letting them die? Before Yuan Qinggang came to the family Ji, he never thought that he would end up like this. The patriarchs of the other families were also crying and begging fiercely. They didn't want to lose their patriarch position at all. If they had known that they would end up like this after coming to the family Ji, they would never have come even if they were beaten to death. But at this moment, there was no medicine for regret. They could only regret endlessly. While they were crying and begging for mercy, Ji Feiyu chuckled. Then he looked at them and said coldly, "If you were standing here today, I wouldn't even have the chance to live, right? You don't have to choose. I will slowly send you on your way later. Especially you, Patriarch Yuan." Yuan Qinggang's expression froze the moment his words left his mouth. He understood that when Ji Feiyu said that he would slowly send them on their way, he didn't just mean it literally. He would definitely suffer endless torment and pain before he would stop. No, he could not let himself fall into that kind of situation. As Yuan Qing thought about it, he clenched his teeth and said with a trembling voice, I choose." In the end he chose to cripple his own limbs. Because compared to crippling his own strength, crippling his own limbs was child's play. It was just a little embarrassing to crawl out of here with his head down. But as long as he still had his strength, he would always be able to make a comeback in the future. At that time he would make Ji Feiyu and Luo Xiaoqi suffer a fate worse than death and die without a burial place. Yuan Qinggang gritted his teeth and crippled his own limbs. Together with the other patriarchs who had made the same choice as him, they endured the pain and crawled out of the family Ji. Chapter 30-38. These words drifted into his ears, instantly causing him to let out an incomparably shrill scream. Ah! Yuan Qinggang's heart collapsed. Those words were given to him by Ji Feiyu. The other party didn't say anything else. He only told him that his broken limbs would never be reattached. Not only that, when his limbs were broken, the meridians connected to his limbs were also broken. In other words, even if his strength wasn't crippled, it was completely useless. It wasn't just him. Even the family heads who made the same choice as him were treated the same way. They had lost their strength and their limbs were crippled. They were worse than cripples. Ji Feiyu said indifferently towards the end, "So, who are you calling a cripple? Who are you telling not to meddle in other people's business? Since you are so proud of your strength, then you can live in the shadow of being powerless and crippled for the rest of your life. I believe that those family heads who have suffered the same fate will treat you well." Ji Feiyu's voice was cold. When necessary, his heart was as cold as anyone else's. Yuan Qinggang shouldn't have threatened Luo Qingtong. Since he had done so, Ji Feiyu would let him know what would happen to him. When Yuan Qinggang heard this, the sadness and despair on his face deepened. No one understood the meaning of Ji Feiyu's words better than him. This time he was the one who pulled the strings to cause trouble in the family Ji. If it weren't for the Yuan family, whose strength was second only to the family Nangong, those families who also had a grudge against Jiunkun might not have dared to come and rob the family Nangong. And now, because of his decision and conjecture, those family heads had their strength and limbs crippled along with him. How would they treat him? Yuan Qinggang couldn't believe it. He looked at the half of Ji Feiyu's face that was hidden in the shadows of the Ji family. His face was as elegant as an immortal's, and he almost didn't dare to believe that those cold and ruthless words just now came from his mouth. Who said that Ji Feiyu's temperament was kind and gentle? This was simply a wolf hiding itself as a lamb. He stared at Ji Feiyu in shock. Just as he was about to shout at Ji Feiyu for being so vicious, Ji Feiyu raised his hand and gestured for the other members of the Yuan family to drag him away with his mouth gagged. Ji Feiyu wasn't afraid that he would say what he had done. He just didn't want his disgusting and shrill voice to dirty Luo Qingtong's ears. The people from the Yuan clan didn't dare to disobey Ji Feiyu. His current strength was at the 6th level of the human martial realm, which was enough to dominate the entire Dongting region. To put it bluntly, the strength of the patriarch of one of the top families in the 7-star field was only SOSO. Therefore, after panicking for a while, they suddenly rejoiced at the current situation. On the surface, the Yuan family was the same as the other families. They had been swallowed up by Ji Feiyu and the others. But in reality they had changed their master, and they had become a first-class large family. Since then, in the entire Dongting region except for the family Ji, who else could compare to them? They had lost their status as members of the Yuan family, but they had gained a more powerful identity. At that moment they no longer resisted the idea of being swallowed up by Ji Feiyu. There were even some smart ones who thought that since Ji Feiyu had annexed so many clans, he couldn't possibly manage them himself. Chapter 30-39. In this way their status in the Yuan family would not change. As long as they were loyal to Ji Feiyu, they could even advance further in the Yuan family because of Yuan Qinggang's downfall. With this thought in mind, everyone rushed to Yuan Qinggang and carried out Ji Feiyu's order. They raised their hands and dragged Yuan Qinggang away. Yuan Qinggang's mouth was gagged and his limbs were crippled. He could not resist at all and was dragged away by them. When he was dragged on the ground by his own family members like a dead dog, Yuan Qinggang finally knew what it meant to be too late for regrets. When his body was dragged away, Ji Feiyu lowered his eyes and walked to Luo Qingtong's side. He raised his hand and handed the medicinal liquid that he had asked Luo Qingtong to give to him through telepathy. Little 7, thank you for letting me vent my anger. He looked up at Luo Qingtong and did not mention a word about his viciousness. He only wanted to vent his anger on behalf of Luo Qingtong. The young girl's expression was indifferent. She just looked at him and smiled lightly. She did not take the medicinal bottle in his hand. No need. You can keep it. This move of killing the chicken to warn the monkey is very good. You don't have to worry about others going against you in the future. Luo Qingtong looked at Ji Feiyu with a smile. Previously she was afraid that Ji Feiyu's thoughts were too pure and kind. She was afraid that he would not be able to deal a heavy blow to Yuan Qinggang and the others. After all, Yuan Qinggang and the others were prepared to deal with Ji Feiyu and the head of the family Nangong. This kind of deadly hatred could only be used as a warning and could not be easily let go. Otherwise, once people found out that Ji Feiyu was strong but pure and kind, who knew how many reckless people would immediately bully him and even think of ways to make use of him. Luo Qingtong sent Buddha to the west. She originally thought that if Ji Feiyu could not bear to do it, she would secretly help him get rid of them. Anyway, Yuan Qinggang didn't know what was good for him. He even threatened her just now. It was a good time to take revenge. In the end, just as she was thinking this, she saw Ji Feiyu finish him off. And it was done beautifully. It seemed that although the other party's heart was pure and kind, he was not a good person. That's right. Previously, when Qin Xiong and the others wanted to kill her, they were blocked by Ji Feiyu's ruthless methods. Luo Qingtong chuckled as she thought of this. She was completely relieved. She didn't want to help Ji Feiyu get his family Ji back, only to see him lose it again. He knew how to be ruthless, benevolent, righteous and gentle. It was better than the usual high-pressure policy. It seemed that it wouldn't be long before the Dongting region would be completely under his control. Ji Feiyu's gaze was deep. He looked at Luo Qingtong and didn't say anything. He just put the bottle of liquid medicine into his pocket. No one knew that Ji Feiyu didn't intend to have a family Ji in the beginning. He had purposely spared the lives of the hundreds of people in the Ji family. It wasn't because he was benevolent, but because he didn't want Luo Qingtong to be implicated by Ji Yuankuan's evil methods. At the same time, it was also to let the remaining people in the family Ji feel powerless after losing their strength. Ji Feiyu would leave the family Ji to them and then watch them struggle because they were powerless to protect the family Ji. At that time, what would happen to the family Ji? Whether it would be swallowed up by the family Nangong or divided up by others, would have nothing to do with him. Chapter 30-40. Ji Feiyu thought about how arrogant Yuan Qinggang and the others were when they threatened Luo Qingtong. The gentle light in his eyes froze into ice. At this moment he didn't just want power. He also wanted influence. He wanted to make the other party regret. If Luo Qingtong encountered such a situation again, he would still be able to help her vent her anger. Level 6 of the human martial realm wasn't considered strong. Even the Lu family might have such a strong person. Ji Feiyu wanted to be able to stand in front of Luo Qingtong and fight for her even when they were out of the Dongting region, or even in the 7-star field, 6-star field, or even higher star fields. Therefore he chose to take over the family Ji's influence. Not only that, he also gathered the influence of the Yuan family and the other families who came to cause trouble. If he couldn't be number one in terms of strength, then he couldn't be inferior in terms of influence. Ji Feiyu had once yearned for a free and easy life. He had once thought that if he could cultivate one day and his body wasn't so weak, then he would travel the world and travel the world. But this time he didn't want to, because there was something he wanted to do more. That was to stand by Luo Qingtong's side. When she might encounter trouble in the future, he would be able to help her get rid of all the obstacles. Although she didn't necessarily need his help, he still wanted to do something for her. This matter had nothing to do with anything else. He wouldn't let her know his feelings. He just wanted to do this for her. While Ji Feiyu was lost in thought, Luo Qingtong was already preparing to leave. She had already achieved her goal of coming to the family Ji. Not only had the heavenly spirit wood seed absorbed enough demon origin chi, but it would soon sprout. She had also obtained a lot of good things from the Yin Demon King's lair. The Yin Demon King's origin spirit beads were enough for her not to worry about the growth of the heavenly spirit wood in the short term. Suddenly Luo Qingtong's heart skipped a beat. She suddenly remembered the 2 evil blood bracelets in her hands. She wondered if the origin soul orbs of the Yin Demon King could replace her power to drive the 2 evil blood bracelets. Luo Qingtong remembered that the 2 evil blood bracelets were silent because they didn't have enough energy. At this moment, the origin soul pearl in her hand was the origin energy that had been separated from the Yin Demon King. If the Yin Demon King had been powerful enough when he was alive, the power of these origin soul pearls might have been able to replenish some of the evil blood bracelets' power. At that time she would have another trump card to use. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she instantly became excited. He couldn't wait to rush back to experiment. She said goodbye to Ji Feiyu and immediately returned to the family Ji residence. Ji Feiyu still had a lot of things to deal with. Not only did he have to deal with the mess in the family Ji residence, but he also had to deal with the Yuan family and the other families that had come to cause trouble. He still had to organize and deal with them. Therefore he didn't send Luo Qingtong off. He was someone who would do whatever it took to accomplish something once he made up his mind. Right now he was preparing to make the Dongting region his own. Therefore he had a lot of things to do. Luo Qingtong also didn't need him to send her off. She quickly returned to the family Ji residence. She asked Yin Yang and Chu Tianyi to guard her courtyard and prevent anyone from trespassing. Then she went back to her room. Chapter 30-41. Luo Qingtong stepped out of her room with a look of pleasant surprise. "Ha Yin Yang, let's go. Let's go back." Luo Qingtong's eyes sparkled. She looked at the evil blood bracelet on her wrist, which already had a beautiful luster. She was very happy. Her previous idea was indeed feasible. The Yin Demon King's demonic origin energy could indeed be absorbed by the evil blood bracelet. It was just that the efficiency of this kind of absorption wasn't particularly high. She didn't know whether it was because the Yin Demon King's energy wasn't pure enough or because the evil blood bracelet was damaged. However, it was already very good to be able to absorb this much energy. Luo Qingtong estimated that by relying on the energy absorbed from the origin soul pearls, Luo Qingtong could temporarily use the evil blood bracelet once. Of course, the power it could display naturally couldn't be compared to the evil blood bracelet's power. However, ordinary Sky Martial Realm experts were enough for Luo Qingtong to kill in an instant. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up as she thought of this. She still had 2 or 3 of the Yin Demon King's origin soul pearls in her hand. These were prepared for the heavenly spiritual wood. In any case, a single origin soul pearl couldn't provide more energy to the evil blood bracelet. It wasn't enough to use the evil blood bracelet a second time. Therefore, Luo Qingtong didn't waste it and left it for the heavenly spiritual wood as food. However, after this, Luo Qingtong had a strong interest in the demon race. One Yin Demon King's origin soul pearl gave the evil blood bracelet a chance to use it. Then if she could kill a few more demon race people. Luo Qingtong thought of this and suddenly felt an indescribable excitement in her heart. Unfortunately, the place where the demon race people were was clearly not a place she could casually go to. Luo Qingtong was able to kill the Yin Demon King by luck. The other party was in a soul state. Moreover, in order to escape the suppression of the demon-suppressing stone tablet, he had suffered heavy injuries. Under such circumstances, she was able to successfully kill the other party. If it was a complete demon, her current strength would not be enough. However, the devil-suppressing stone tablet had already shattered. Perhaps there were other devil clansmen that had escaped to the star field. Luo Qingtong thought so and decided to pay attention to some strange things in the future. Especially in a situation like Ji Feiyu's, she had to uphold the tradition of saving the world and resolutely treat him. Who knows, she might be able to get another demon's soul to replenish the evil blood bracelet. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong suddenly smiled. When Yen Yang heard her order, she immediately went to prepare to leave. Chu Tianyi followed behind her with a gloomy expression. This time he originally wanted to guard Luo Qingtong's door alone and let Yen Yang rest. In the end, Yen Yang could not understand his considerate actions and insisted on waiting in front of Luo Qingtong's door. Chu Tianyi's heart was tangled. He felt that he did not even have 1% of Luo Qingtong's status. However, who asked him to not know about the existence of Yen Yang and Chu Lingfeng before and almost let them die? Under such circumstances, they would naturally be closer to Luo Qingtong and not him. Chu Tianyi thought so and felt even more gloomy. At the same time, he gnashed his teeth and swore to himself that after he coaxed Yen Yang and returned to the Heavenly Wind region, he would definitely make Bai Xing and the others pay the price. While he was gnashing his teeth in the Star Wilderness region. Chapter 3042. This is the star-desolate region? Chu Yufei looked at the spiritual energy around her. She finally understood why her mother had risked her life to stay in the Chu family. The spiritual energy here was simply too barren. Although she already knew that the star-desolate region was a 9-star region, the degree of spiritual energy here was the lowest of the 9-star regions. If one cultivated here at the same level, wouldn't they need to spend several times more time than people from other star regions? There were even some higher levels and strengths that couldn't be raised here. This was because the spiritual energy here simply didn't meet the standards for advancement. Oh my God, this was just too terrifying. For some unknown reason, he was valued by the Star Alliance, after she was expelled from the Chu family, she might have to live with Bai Xing in this terrible and backward place. At this moment, he finally knew the reason. Her pretty face lost all color. So it really was because of the sector beast. Mother, I don't want to live here anymore. The method left behind by their family was only able to faintly detect whether or not there were traces of sector beasts within the True Spill continent. This was the first time that Bai Xing had returned to the star-desolate region in so many years. Or not. She looked at the star region in front of her that lacked judging from the attitude of the people from the Star Alliance towards the people from the True Spill continent, when she left with Chu Tianyi and went to the Heavenly Wind region, she realized that the outside world was so vast and the life of the Chu family was so good. Let alone returning to the star-desolate region, even if she had to go to a star region that wasn't inferior to the Heavenly Wind region, she still wouldn't be satisfied. Why was she the one who had to leave? She had already stayed by the side of the Chu family and Chu Tianyi for so many years. She had enjoyed the benefits of the Chu family and the status of Madame Xing for so long. How could she be willing to leave? If she went elsewhere, would she have the status and benefits of the Chu family? What a joke. She would never leave. 20 years ago she was the winner. Now she would still be the winner. Yen Yang must die. Not only that, but anyone who knew about the matter between her and Yen Yang must die. Bai Xing's eyes were cold. After comforting Chu Yufei, she led the group towards the True Spill continent. At this time in Star City, the Lu family had already received a report from a spy from the True Spill continent. Ah, Uncle Fong, there really are traces of sector beasts in the True Spill continent. Lu Yu was very pleased with himself. As he looked at the spy's report in his hands, a greedy and ambitious look appeared in his eyes. Sector beast. Who would have thought that it was really on that small low-level continent? Before this, Lu Yu and the rest of the Lu family thought that this was nonsense. He had only come here to investigate, and the result was that he discovered all sorts of strange things about the people of True Spill continent in the star-desolate territory. Chapter 3043. When Mo Zhuling had been taught a lesson by the people of True Spill continent, the Star Alliance's alliance master didn't even dare to say a word. It was obvious that he was afraid of something. Originally, he thought that it was Elder Fong's people who made him afraid. Now, it seemed that the internal conflict of the Star Alliance was because there was someone in True Spill continent that they didn't dare to offend. Because of Mo Zhuling, the Star Alliance's alliance master had already offended someone from True Spill continent. Therefore, he didn't have as much face as Elder Fong and the others in True Spill continent. The balance of power in the Star Alliance naturally tilted towards Elder Fong and the others. The more Lu Yu thought about it, the more he felt that this was the case. Just as he was thinking this, Mo Zhuling's voice sounded from outside. Yu Lang. Mo Zhuling, because of the Lu family's support, had once again gained a firm foothold in the Star Alliance. Those people who had once said to the Star Alliance's alliance master that they wanted to expel her from the Star Alliance had all been ruthlessly beaten up by her in the name of the Lu family. Even the Star Alliance's alliance master didn't dare to openly oppose her, let alone put on airs in front of her. The more he had taught Mo Zhuling a lesson, the stronger the backlash would be. Their alliance master's people were all led by Mo Zhuling, and no one dared to disobey her. Mo Zhuling's heart was filled with pride, but at the same time he was also very nervous. After all, her status in the Lu family wasn't completely clear. After the marriage proposal banquet, although she was known as Lu Yu's fiancée, Mo Zhuling knew that the Lu family didn't take her seriously. Lu Yu comforted her, saying that it would be good as long as they received news from True Spill Continent. At that time he would send a letter to his family, saying that he wanted to marry her. At that time he would come to marry her grandly. Mo Zhuling heard that news from True Spill Continent had arrived today, and immediately brought a group of people from the Alliance Master's side to visit. Hearing her voice, Lu Yu's eyes suddenly turned cold, and a trace of disgust flashed in them. At this time, Mo Zhuling had already brought a group of people into the room. Seeing Lu Yu, she immediately laughed. "Yulang, what made you so happy just now that made you smile so happily?" Mo Zhuling's heart was proud. She knew that the True Spill Continent wouldn't go wrong. Now that Lu Yu and the others had received the relevant information, they would definitely believe what he said, right? As she thought of this, she was so excited that she started to tremble. Not for anything else, but once she married into the Lu family, she could deal with Luo Qingtong and the others without fear. At that time, even if the True Spill Continent was destroyed and the people of the Star Alliance were implicated, so what? She could still live well in the Lu family. As long as she didn't let that terrifying man find out what she had done behind his back, the destruction of True Spill Continent wouldn't affect her at all. As Mo Zhuling thought of this, she smiled proudly in her heart. As she said that, the people from the Alliance Masters faction congratulated Lu Yu one after another. They didn't know why Lu Yu was so happy. However, it was right to follow Mo Zhuling's words. Speaking of which, Mo Zhuling was also strange today. He had called everyone over early in the morning, saying that he wanted to bring them to the Lu family's temporary residence to witness something. Chapter 3044. At the same time, some people were secretly guessing what was going on. Why was Lu Yu so happy? This was because when they were walking with Mo Zhuling, they had all heard Lu Yu's hearty laughter. They just hadn't heard what he said afterwards. Lu Yu's gaze was filled with mockery as he looked at the people from the Star Alliance's faction. There were even people from Elder Fang's faction amongst them. Lu Yu's heart was filled with even more mockery as he looked at them. He looked at Mo Zhuling. Seeing the joy and pride on her face, he knew what she was planning. This stupid woman, did she really think that he would immediately announce their marriage as soon as he obtained the news from True Spill Continent? This woman was simply too stupid. Moreover, she was stupid and vicious. He thought of how Mo Zhuling had been complaining in front of him about how the Lu family was disrespectful to her and how they looked down on her. Lu Yu's eyes were filled with mockery. Perhaps in front of Mo Zhuling, he was just a rich and foolish young master who could be easily fooled by her. Unfortunately, he didn't know who was the one being fooled. With this thought in mind, Lu Yu immediately flipped Mo Zhuling, who was sitting on his lap, over in front of all the flattering people. "You think you can call me Yu Lang? You have no sense of shame. You have no sense of seniority." Lu Yu's expression was cold. He looked at Mo Zhuling with disgust and disdain. He had been patient and perfunctory with this woman for so long. Now he could finally vent his anger. Who did this woman think she was? If it weren't for the news from True Spill Continent and the fact that he didn't want to alert the enemy, would he have needed to deal with her for so long? She still wanted him to marry her? Based on her shameless and debauched body? He was already tired of playing with her. When his voice sounded, Mo Zhuling's face stiffened. She lay on the ground in disbelief, still in a daze. There was still a smile on her face. The smile on her lips was mixed with her incredulous gaze and half of her face was twitching. She looked like a ghost. She shouted in disbelief, "Lu Yu, what did you say?" Mo Zhuling was on the verge of breaking down. She looked at the cold-looking man in front of her. She could not believe that this was Lu Yu, who had always fulfilled her every request. What was going on? Why did the other party suddenly change his attitude? When her voice rang out, Lu Yu sneered and slowly stood up from his couch. He looked at the silent crowd and slowly approached Mo Zhuling. He grabbed her chin and lifted her head. He looked at her and said coldly, "What? Didn't you hear me clearly? Then I'll explain it again in detail. Mo Zhuling, who do you think you are? How dare you dream of becoming my wife? Do you know that even if you were to marry a slut like you to our family's dog, our Lu family would find you dirty?" Lu Yu sneered. He had had enough of Mo Zhuling. She didn't put him in her eyes just because she knew a little about medicine and prescriptions. Unfortunately, if it weren't for the secret of True Spill Continent, he wouldn't have feigned civility with her. If they wanted the prescriptions and medical skills in her hands, they could just capture her and imprison her. Chapter 3045. What a joke. She actually thought that he was deeply in love with her and ordered him to propose to her at the wedding banquet. Originally, Lu Yu didn't want to be serious about it. It was just for fun. He was just trying to placate Mo Zhuling. But who would have thought that this woman would let his name and hers become infamous in the entire star region because of her selfishness? Lu Yu wished he could snap Emo Juling's neck right there and then. He grabbed Emo Juling's neck and threw him out. Then he ordered the people around him, throw them all out of the Lu residence. Also, find someone to watch him. Don't let him escape. Lu Yu wouldn't let Emo Juling off so easily. Didn't she flaunt her prowess during this period of time? Later she would go to the Star Alliance and continue to flaunt her prowess. Anyway, with the people around him, Emo Juling wouldn't be able to escape from his hands. He would let him experience the consequences of flaunting his prowess during this period of time. After Lu Yu said that, Uncle Fong immediately called in the Lu family guards outside and threw Emo Juling and the others out. Needless to say, the people from the Star Alliance's faction were all on the same side. They came here in high spirits. They thought that Emo Juling would have a meteoric rise and that his marriage with the young master of the Lu family would be near. Who would have thought that this would happen? Everyone was stunned. They didn't come back to their senses until they were thrown out by the Lu family. Elder Fong's faction didn't want to come at all. But they were threatened by Emo Juling in the name of the Lu family, so they had no choice but to come. They were very nervous at first. Now that they saw the fate of Emo Juling and the people from the Star Alliance's faction, they were so happy that they were going crazy. What was the saying? The evils we bring on ourselves are the hardest to bear? Emo Juling and the others brought on themselves are the hardest to bear. They were wondering why young Master Lu Yu was so generous. He didn't even care that Emo Juling had ruined his reputation during the marriage proposal banquet. So they were waiting for Emo Juling. Lift her up high and throw her down. Everyone was overjoyed when they thought of this. They didn't wait for the people from the Lu family to arrive and hastily rushed out of the Lu family's residence to report this good news to the Star Alliance. Emo Juling, on the other hand, was dumbfounded when she was dragged out by the Lu clan. She struggled with all her might, telling the Lu clan that there was a super strong cultivator behind her. Her pill formulas and prescriptions all belonged to him. The Lu family could not treat her like this. Otherwise he would definitely suffer the other party's revenge. Emo Juling could no longer care about anything else. She couldn't be sent back to the Star Alliance. She couldn't be abandoned by the Lu family. Otherwise, based on what she had done in the Star Alliance, even if Elder Fong and the others didn't do anything, just her father's faction and the people from the Star Alliance's faction were enough to torture her to death. She didn't want to fall into such a miserable situation. However, the Lu family's people snorted at her words. The Lu family's guards who were dragging her sneered and said, Emo Juling, Miss Emo, you should stop struggling. Our young master has heard too many of your lies. Moreover, if you really have that super strong cultivator by your side, why don't you let her do it? If she did, you wouldn't have fallen into such a situation where you were almost deserted by everyone, right? Chapter 3046. The group of Lu family guards sneered. Mo Zhuling's face was ashen. He couldn't refute, because she really couldn't summon black fog at this time. Therefore, Lu Yu had been feigning civility with her for so long in order to determine whether or not there was anyone behind her. He wasn't sincere to her at all. His talk about going to True Spill Continent to find out the truth was just an excuse. To think that she actually believed it to be true. As Mo Zhuling thought this, he felt as if his face had been slapped hundreds or thousands of times. She was dragged out of the mansion by the Lu family people and thrown outside the gate. Because of the Lu family's strength and the fact that Mo Zhuling had screwed them over, the Star Alliance's Alliance Masters faction didn't even bother with her. They left on their own. Mo Zhuling lay on the ground. He tried to get up several times but he fell back down every time. Because she had struggled with all her might in the Lu family, she had suffered heavy injuries. The Lu family guards didn't have the slightest bit of pity for her. Seeing her resist, they immediately suppressed her. At this moment, Mo Zhuling's entire body was soft. As she tried to get up and fall back down, Yuan Hu and Su Xiaoxiao also passed by. Mo Zhuling had asked people to lead them here. He wanted them to see her being respectfully welcomed by the Lu family people. At the same time, he wanted them to know that she would soon be given a grand wedding by the Lu family people. However, things didn't go as planned. The scene she wanted Yuan Hu and the others to see didn't happen. Instead, they saw her at her most unbearable state. Mo Zhuling's entire body was covered in mud and dust. His clothes were also worn and tattered. One could vaguely see his sparkling skin underneath. The hairpin on her head had long since fallen off. Her black hair draped over her body. She looked like a crazy beggar. This wasn't just unbearable and abject, it was simply tragic to the extreme. Su Xiaoxiao and Yuan Hu didn't expect to meet Mo Zhuling here and see her in such a miserable state. Wasn't this woman very arrogant recently? It was said that the Lu family didn't blame her at all and even supported her. Elder Fong and the others had been taught a lesson by her several times. Su Xiaoxiao and Yuan Hu were on high alert at all times to prevent this woman from causing trouble again. He didn't expect her to become like this. Tisk, that's why, instead of relying on the heavens and earth, it's better to rely on yourself. Yuan Hu said coldly as he glanced at Mo Zhuling. How could the other party compare to their boss in this state? What a joke. Even if Ming Zun was blind, he wouldn't take a fancy to her, okay? You only know how to rely on others. Now you've finally been kicked out of the door, right? Serves her right for being so arrogant. The crowd simply couldn't be bothered with her and walked straight to her side. However, Mo Zhuling's heart was filled with hatred. After being treated like this by Lu Yu, Su Xiaoxiao, Yuan Hu, and the others saw such an unbearable side of her. The blood in her heart kept surging up. Finally, with a puff, she spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted in front of the crowd of onlookers. At this moment in the Dongting region, Luo Qingtong immediately prepared to leave after solving the problem of the evil blood bracelet. Chapter 3047. Little Seven, you're leaving? His large strides were as if he were flying. In the past he had to take a few steps to catch his breath, needing someone to support him at all times. But now his figure was strong and his steps were steady like the wind. In an instant, his figure was a step faster than Sui Yu and the others, and he directly appeared in front of Luo Qingtong. As Luo Qingtong saw Ji Feiyu and the others arrive,
Otherwise,
she smiled
they wouldn't
and
have
said,
dared to go
"It's
against
all right,
Qin
there's
Xiong.
no need to see me off."
Now that Ji
You're
Feiyu's
busy
strength
here.
had increased,
He
once you're
proposed a
done, you're
solution
welcome
according
to visit
the
the
cultivation barrier they
as a
had been
guest.
facing.
With
Luo
this,
Qingtong's
everyone's
face was all
strength had
smiles.
increased.
Today,
This was
Ji
also
Feiyu
because
was
the
the
true
true
ruler
ruler
of
of
the
the
East
East
Pavilion
Pavilion
region.
region.
He
In the
was
lower
clearer
three
than
regions,
anyone else
there was
about
no
their
such
physical
thing as a
condition
region
and
and cultivation progress.
This was because in these
If it were someone else, he
regions,
definitely
the high-level
wouldn't have been able to do
powerhouses were
this.
all about the same
When
in
Sui Yu
strength.
and the others spoke,
Basically, there had
Luo
never been a
Qingtong's heart was
powerhouse like
slightly
Ji
moved,
Feiyu, whose
Sui
strength
Yu
could
and the others'
completely crush
proposal
others.
was indeed very
Thus,
good.
there was no such
With
thing
them
as
by
a
her
family
side,
completely
Luo
crushing
Qingtong
other
could be more at
families and
ease.
dominating a star region.
But now, with Luo Qingtong's
Chapter
help,
3048.
Ji Feiyu was the true
family
ruler of the
Nangong
East
master's
Pavilion
voice
region,
rang out,
and also the true
Miss
region
Xiaoqi,
master.
our family Nangong
The reason
has a
Luo
few good
Qingtong
men.
invited
You
him
can
to
bring
visit
them
the
along
true
with
Spill
you.
continent as a
The
guest
people
was
that the
naturally
family
so that the true
Nangong
Spill
master had
continent
prepared were all
grandfather
his
Luo,
direct descendants,
and the others could have an
He had
ally
done
like
so
him.
to show his
Like
loyalty
this,
to
she would
Luo
feel
Qingtong.
much more at ease in the
These
future.
direct descendants were
After
by
all,
Luo Qingtong's
even if the
side
true
to gain
Spill
experience
continent was
and also
connected to
wish hostages
Shaotuan's
so that
world in
Luo
the future,
Qingtong could be at
Luo
ease with them.
Qingtong couldn't
At the
always
same
be
time,
preparing
who
to
was
return
Luo
to the true
Qingtong?
Spill continent.
She was young
Master
Master
Shaoqi.
Luo Qingtong
These
would
family
help them plan
Nangong
out the
people were
strength
by
and
her
allies
side.
that they should have.
There were only benefits
She would
and
ensure
no
that grandfather
disadvantages.
Luo and the others
Seeing
would
that
be
Luo
safe in the true
Qingtong did
Spill
not have
continent.
many people by her
As Luo
side,
Qingtong
the family
spoke,
Nangong
Ji
master
Feiyu
was
silently
naturally
nodded.
eager to send
He
his
had
family
originally
members to
planned to
Luo
do so.
Qingtong's side so
If
that
it
they
weren't
could
for him
seize the
suddenly
opportunity
changing
to
his
succeed
mind,
her. He would
it
have
should
gone
be
to the
known
true
that once
Spill
Luo
continent to
Qingtong
settle
and the
down
master
there.
of the palace
But
met,
thinking that the
perhaps in
strength
the
of the
future,
sixth level
the
of the
family
human
Nangong
martial realm
people
would
would
not
not
even have the
and that
opportunity
strength
to do
alone
odd
might
jobs
not be
by
able
Luo
to help Luo
Qingtong's side.
Qingtong.
When
He
Luo
decided to
Qingtong
accept
heard
the
his
strength of
words,
the
she
family Ji
immediately
and the
looked
Yuan
at him with a
family.
faint smile.
Now that Luo
She had
Qingtong
already
said
seen
so,
through his
it was
plan.
exactly what he
However,
wanted.
Luo
When
Qingtong
he
did
nodded,
not reject
Sui
the
Yu and
family
the others had
Nangong
already
master's
rushed
scheming
over.
methods.
Seeing that
She had
Luo
previously
Qingtong
said
was
that she
really
liked
liked
smart
leave,
people,
they immediately
especially
started talking
smart
at
people
once.
who knew when to
Little
advance
Seven,
and
you're
when to
leaving?
retreat.
Why don't we go
They knew
back
what
with
to
you?
do and what not to do.
Yes, our
They
strength
knew what
has
to hold
also
on to
increased.
and what not to hold
Young
on
Master
to.
doesn't need
The
us to
family
serve him
Nangong
anymore.
master did not
Why don't we
think
go
that he was
back with
smart
you?
enough to have
This
any
way,
ideas
I can
about
take
her.
care of you and
Instead,
the people
he chose
around
to
you.
send his family
That's right.
Nangong people to her
Zhuling
side
has
to
the
gain
support of the
experience
Lu
and show their
family.
loyalty.
Who knows what
Naturally,
they will do to
Luo
you?
Qingtong
Take
would
us
not
with you.
reject him.
Sui
To
Yu
be
and the
honest,
others
she
were
had
already
only
close to
accepted
the
the
9th
family
level of the
Nangong
Amethyst
people on a
Elder.
whim. She did not care too much about them. However, at this moment, through the actions of the family Nangong master, they were completely tied to her. As long as the family Nangong people were loyal, she naturally would not treat them badly. The family Nangong master had a very long-term vision. No wonder when Nangong Yinyu was the #1 genius of the family Nangong, even after she went crazy and became blind, the family Nangong still stood tall. When Luo Qingtong came to the East Pavilion region, the family Nangong was still one of the top families in the East Pavilion region. There was nothing wrong with such a person under her command. After all, he knew what he was doing and his ability was good. If your family Nangong people have anything you want to send, you can send them to True Spill Continent in the future. Luo Qingtong said. As soon as she said that, she had already completely acknowledged the Nangong clan as one of them, and was willing to continue accepting the disciples of the Nangong clan. When Nangong family head heard Luo Qingtong's words, he couldn't help but tremble violently. He deeply understood the difference between his own people and ordinary subordinates. When he saw that he and the others had received Luo Qingtong's approval, he was so excited that he almost fainted. Okay. The family Nangong master's voice trembled as he hurriedly agreed. The family Nangong people looked at him frequently. Even Sui Yu and the others felt very strange. Even if Little Seven was very strong and capable, wasn't the family Nangong master too excited? Could there be some unknown identity behind Little Seven? But she was indeed a person from the Star Wilderness region's True Spill continent? Everyone was confused. They clearly knew Luo Qingtong's origin, so they could not understand the family Nangong master's excitement. Chapter 3049. Ji Feiyu had a complicated look in his eyes. He looked at Luo Qingtong and was sure that there must be some force behind Luo Qingtong. The identity of the Star Wilderness region and the True Spill continent was probably one of Luo Qingtong's identities. He thought of the first time he and others met Luo Qingtong. The girl was full of mystery. He didn't think too much about it at that time. However, now that he thought about it, the so-called treasure that caused Qin Xiong and the others to search for it at all costs and even disobey his orders was probably the phenomenon created by Luo Qingtong, right? Little Seven, who are you? Ji Feiyu originally thought that after he obtained the Dongting region, he might be able to help Luo Qingtong a little. But now it seemed that this was far from enough. While they were chatting with Luo Qingtong, somewhere in the starry sky thousands of miles away from the Dongting region, an extremely grand and majestic palace was located in the middle of it. Yi Qianxian sat on the throne in the main hall. Have they all been eliminated? He looked at Bei Qing and Feng Yu beside him. The two nodded quickly and said, yes, they have all been eliminated. Master, our internal affairs have been infiltrated by the people of the major forces. Nearly 80% of the people who responded to your summons have been bribed. They have been free for too long. Naturally, they are not willing to come back and obey my orders. Not to mention that my identity has been exposed. I am a half-cripple who will not live for long. Yi Qianxian snorted coldly. He had guessed this long ago. When he decided to dissolve the Dark Nether Palace, he knew that there would inevitably be people who would be disloyal in the future. But he didn't think that he could continue to live, so he didn't care. If these people had the ability to unify the Dark Nether Palace and even rely on the capital of the Dark Nether Palace to live a better life in other places, it would be their good fortune. But now that he had met Luo Qingtong, he changed his mind and didn't want to die. Everything that these people had obtained and the rights that he had bestowed upon them naturally had to be returned. If there were any who were disloyal, then kill them all. If not for that, Yi Qianxian would not have stayed in the Onyx Palace for so long. As for the rest of them, if they don't have any other intentions, just pull them out. It doesn't matter if they are weak. They can use all the resources. Yi Qianxian's expression was indifferent. The Onyx Palace naturally had excellent resources and could arrange for them to train and improve. They would not lose out to any royal family, nobles, or the disciples of major forces. Yi Qianxian had originally planned to wait until Luo Qingtong's strength had risen and she was able to leave the True Spill continent and the Star Wilderness. Once she was able to wander through the Star Field, he would bring her to Black Nether Palace and raise her. But the result was that man proposes but the heavens disposes. Luo Qingtong's strength had risen quickly, but before she could leave the True Spill continent, she had been sent to the Skywind region by Song Cheng. Afterwards, she had met the avatar of the Sky Capital Emperor on the abandoned continent. Now, his identity as the master of the Onyx Palace had been exposed. There was no way for him to bring Luo Qingtong to the Onyx Palace and use the resources of the Onyx Palace to raise her. Because of this, the people of Sky Capital would inevitably keep a close eye on the people of Onyx Palace and tamper with Luo Qingtong's training. Thus, not only would Luo Qingtong not be able to rapidly increase her strength, but because of the intervention of the people of Sky Capital, she would face even more dangers. Chapter 3050. Thinking of how Luo Qingtong had directly risen to the 9th level of the Purple Venerable Realm in the abandoned continent, and even obtained the Evil Blood Bracelet and the Heaven and Earth Tyrant Fist. The corners of Yi Qianxian's lips curled upwards, an indescribable sense of pride in his heart, and even the ice in his eyes melted a lot. Let those people of Tiandu continue to look down on his pearl. When the young girl blooms, they will know how ignorant and stupid they were. And Yi Qianxian was looking forward to the arrival of that day. Send someone to pass on a message to the people of Tiandu, tell them not to have any unrealistic delusions. Luo Qingtong will only be my one and only wife in this life. What concubine, let them all die. Otherwise, I don't mind sending them to their deaths. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. After his identity as the master of the Underworld Palace was exposed, several waves of people came to Tiandu, all telling him not to be angry with the Emperor of Tiandu, and to lower his head. They said that they could accept Luo Qingtong's identity, but she could not be the official wife. At the same time, Yi Qianxian also needed to accept their designated official wife candidate. It was simply laughable. The person that he held in his hand, loved like a treasure, and doted on like his life spirit, actually needed them to accept her in order to be with him? They even used his lifespan as an excuse, saying that he would not live for long. What would Luo Qingtong do in the future? In Tiandu she had no one to rely on. If Yi Qianxian was too tough, Luo Qingtong would inevitably suffer in the future. Did the woman he fell in love with need him to compromise in order to be with her? Did she need him to rely on in order to be able to stay by his side openly? Yi Qianxian only felt that it was absurd. These people looked down on Luo Qingtong because they did not know how their emperor, the clone of the emperor of Tiandu, was stopped by Luo Qingtong with a single punch. The woman he fell in love with, in this world, across the wilderness, across the 9 heavens, there was no one who could compare to her. Only he and the people around her could understand her beauty and brilliance. What were the people of Tiandu? Sooner or later they would be slapped in the face by him. Yi Qianxian beat back all the people who came to persuade him. If it wasn't for the fact that he was purging the people inside the Onyx Palace and couldn't find the time, he would have killed them all. Let the people of Tiandu see the end of those who dared to despise Luo Qingtong in front of him. His woman would naturally be protected by him and no one else could say a word. When Bei Qing, Fengyu and the others heard his words, they immediately agreed. During this period of time, they were indeed exhausted from dealing with those people from Tiandu. Luckily, Master had the foresight to send people to contact the people of Black Nether Palace when he was in the True Spill continent. Those people did not know that Master was the dying young emperor of Tiandu, so they did not dare to disobey Master's orders. By the time they found out, it was already too late. Master had been treated by the evil doctor, and his strength had been restored to half of his peak. He could easily kill them. Bei Qing, Fengyu and the others were sincerely grateful to Luo Qingtong. Without her, they feared that Yi Qianxian, with his heroic and unparalleled strength, would have been betrayed and imprisoned, living a life without dignity. After all, the emperor of Tiandu and the others had coveted Master's talent for a long time. With Master's heavenly vein body nearing its end, they had become increasingly unscrupulous. Chapter 30-51. He wondered what kind of expression the people in Tiandu would have if they knew that Master's heavenly veins body could be saved and he would not have to die in the future. After all, they had been hoping that Master's heavenly veins body would fail and he would die immediately since the day he was born. Even the emperor was the same. It was ridiculous to say it. The other party and Master were father and son, but they had never had the slightest bit of father-son affection. In fact, the emperor was extremely afraid of Master. If he didn't know that Master had the heavenly veins body and would not live for long, he would have killed Master long ago. The people in Tiandu looked down on Luo Qingtong, but they didn't know that she was the key to Yi Qianxian's salvation and survival. When they came to their senses, they would regret their belittling of Luo Qingtong. While Bei Qing, Fengyu and the others were thinking about this, Yi Qianxian had already gotten up and was ready to leave. He had stayed in the Black Nether Palace for long enough. If it wasn't for dealing with the people in Tiandu and cleaning up the Black Nether Palace, he would have left to find Luo Qingtong long ago. Now that things had come to an end, he naturally wouldn't stay here any longer. He had endured long enough and couldn't be separated from Luo Qingtong anymore. Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others were also prepared to leave with him. But Yi Qianxian wasn't going to take them with him. Firstly, they still needed to preside over the overall situation in the Black Nether Palace. Secondly, without them the people in Tiandu would definitely guess where he had gone. At that time, the Emperor of Tiandu would act recklessly and everything he had done for Luo Qingtong during this period would be in vain. Yi Qianxian had to let them think that he was still here so that they wouldn't dare to act rashly. The most important thing was that Luo Qingtong had been playing tricks on him all this while, and he had no way to deal with her. Why did he tell her that he had gone over this time? Not letting her know was the right thing to do. Bei Qing and Feng Yu were too big of a target if they followed him. If they were not careful, they would be discovered by her. As Yi Qianren thought of this, she snorted coldly and went on her way alone. Before he left, he even deliberately concealed his appearance and identity. Or rather, he had changed his appearance and identity. Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others watched as their master left with a new look. They were suddenly speechless. Master and the evil doctor were really, she didn't know if they were a match made in heaven or a natural nemesis. His master, who was usually calm, steady and dignified, would always become especially childish and petty when he met an evil doctor. How could he be so calculative over such a matter and even want to get back at the evil doctor? Seriously, the temperament of a child. However, as Yi Qianxian's close subordinates who had watched over him all this time, they were also very happy that Yi Qianxian had gained popularity. In the past, their mistress was perfect in every way. She was extraordinarily talented and powerful. Her intelligence and willpower were also first class. Although such a mistress made them look up to her, they couldn't feel a trace of her existence. Yi Qianxian didn't have any special attachment to her life. Since she was young, she only wanted to do her best. She looked like a living fake statue. Like an immortal who was placed on the altar. After meeting Luo Qingtong, Yi Qianxian became completely alive. Chapter 3052. Everyone had smiles on their faces as they watched Yi Qianren leave. Looking at his departing back, Feng Yu ordered everyone around, strictly seal off any news of Master. Don't let the news that he has left Black Nether Palace spread. The people of Heaven Capital were afraid of Master at this moment. If they knew that Master was not in the palace, they would definitely take the opportunity to attack. At the same time, the sealed passages from Heaven Capital to True Spill Continent would also be broken. Feng Yu had to be on guard. Understood. Everyone responded. At this moment, an anxious voice sounded from outside. Oh my God, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, come out quickly. Hearing this voice, Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others were stunned for a moment. Then they hurried to greet a figure outside Black Nether Palace. Elder Yu, why are you here? Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others had strange expressions. They looked at Elder Yu who was running out in a hurry. Because his steps were too messy, he almost tripped on the doorstep. Didn't he return to Miracle Medical Valley? Why did he come back? Speaking of Elder Yu, it had to be mentioned that he had accidentally let the people of Tiandu know about Luo Qingtong's existence due to a momentary mistake. Because of his guilty conscience, Elder Yu returned to Miracle Medical Valley after he was unable to find a way to heal Yi Qianxian's heavenly pulse body. There was no other way. His strength was limited. It was better to let the people of Miracle Medical Valley help him think of a way. The main reason was that he had obtained a trace of inspiration from Luo Qingtong. But there were some things that he could not think of, so he had not made any progress. A few days ago, he had researched a pill that could let Yi Qianxian use his strength without worrying about the strength of his meridians decreasing. This could reduce the burden on Yi Qianxian's meridians as much as possible, so that he would not be too restricted when Luo Qingtong was not around. It was also after Yi Qianxian obtained the pill that he decided to wipe out all the people inside Black Nether Palace. Otherwise, according to Yi Qianxian's meridians, he would have to spend at least half a year to wipe out all those people. And the plan that would have to be arranged was very troublesome. How could it be like now, directly killing them and then looking for Luo Qingtong? Hearing Bei Qing and Feng Yu's questions, Elder Yu's face turned gloomy. He hurriedly asked, Master, where's your master? Tell him to take out the medicine he took from me earlier. He can't eat that. Elder said as he stamped his feet. Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others were shocked. They immediately asked him, What's going on? Said Elder. Why can't he eat that medicine? Their master had not only did he eat its master, he had used master medicine. Could it be that the pill had been replaced by someone else, or that there was something wrong with it? Bei Qing, Elder Yu and the others thought and suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. Feng Yu kept Elder Yu here and asked him about the situation. At the same time she asked Bei Qing to lead people to chase after Yi Qianxian. However, after knowing that he could leave to look for Luo Qingtong, the man's figure flew quickly. No one knew where he was now. Because he did not want to attract the attention of the people in Tiandu, Yi Qianxian did not even release Qing Tian. He was completely flying with his physical body. Chapter 3053. While everyone was feeling anxious, Elder Yuelao was also a little dumbfounded by the scene in front of him. "Are you kidding me? Your master has already taken the medicine?" he said in disbelief. "Oh my God, we're done for. Where did he go now?" "There's nothing wrong with the effect of the medicine. It's just that when I was refining the medicine, I made a mistake and added an extra dose of the medicine, causing a little side effect after taking the medicine." As Elder Yuelao said this, he felt guilty. "As soon as I found out, I hurried over to find your master. Why can't he keep his cool? Besides, why did he run around after taking the medicine? Can't he just stay in the Black Nether Palace?" When Elder Yuelao rushed over, he still had a fantasy in his heart, thinking that perhaps Yi Qianxian hadn't had time to take the medicine. Or maybe it didn't matter if he really took it. There was nothing wrong with the medicine, but there were some side effects. The side effects were not a problem at all in the Black Nether Palace. Anyway, no one could hurt Yi Qianxian. But he didn't expect that the boy not only took the medicine, but also ran away. He was done for. While he was feeling dizzy, Bei Qing and Feng Yu were relieved when they heard that there was nothing wrong with the effect of the medicine. After all, their master had already taken the medicine, and he had done it a few days ago. If there was really a problem, their master would be in trouble when he went out now. However, there was a little side effect. What side effect? Bei Qing and Feng Yu looked at Elder Yuelao suspiciously and asked, "Elder Yuelao, what kind of side effect is it?" It was not that they doubted Elder Yuelao, but this old urchin's character was really bad. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others felt that his little description was not as simple as he said. "Haha, nothing, it's just..." Elder Yuelao laughed dryly, leaned in front of Bei Qing and Feng Yu and whispered a few words in their ears. In an instant, their eyes bulged out of their sockets. You. They raised their hands and pointed at Elder Yuelao. The latter quickly raised her hand and slapped away their raised fingers. She said hurriedly, Hey, I what? Don't worry, the aftereffects will only appear when little Yi goes all out and exhausts all of his strength." Looking at the two of you, Brat Yi must have gone to see last Tong, right? In the 9-star region, how could something like this happen that would exhaust his strength? Elder Yu vowed solemnly. He had panicked just now. After thinking about it, Yi Qianxian wasn't in the Onyx Palace. But according to his understanding of the other party, he was not here. Most likely he had gone to look for Luo Qingtong. As a result, he calmed down. As long as Yi Qianxian didn't face people like Tiandu Di and the others, he wouldn't run out of strength. The aftereffects were as good as none. I owe my mother. Next time, I won't allow those little bastards from the godly medical valley to stroll around in my cave. They were simply going to die if they touched the amount of medicinal liquid in my cave. While Elder Yuelao was fuming with anger, Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others also calmed down a little. Elder Yuelao was right. In the 9-star region, there shouldn't be anything that would exhaust their master's strength. As long as they hid their master's whereabouts well, it would be fine. Chapter 3054. At this time in the star-desolate region, near the True Spill continent, Bai Xing and the others appeared. Madam. A group of Chu family guards looked at the True Spill continent in front of them. They frowned and said to Bai Xing, "There seems to be something wrong with that low-level continent." With their eyesight, they could naturally see that there were many powerhouses hidden in the vicinity of the True Spill continent. They didn't place these people's strength in their eyes. But with so many people guarding this place, it was obvious that they weren't powerhouses that a low-level continent should have. They couldn't help but feel a bit nervous. It had to be known that their actions in coming to the True Spill continent were completely hidden from the Chu family. If today's matters were to spread out, then they would all die. Not to mention anything else, just Chu Tianyi wouldn't let them go. This was because this was the place where the woman he loved the most was. This was also the homeland of the young master. Everyone was still very timid in their hearts. They didn't dare to act rashly. Hearing their words, Bai Xing's eyes narrowed. She looked at the True Spill continent in front of her. Although she didn't think that there was anything wrong with such a low-level continent, these Chu family guards were just like the Chu family guards. However, these guards of the Chu clan were on the same boat as her. There was no reason for them to lie to her. Thus, there must be something wrong with the True Spill continent. Let's go. We'll go to the Star Alliance first. Since there was something strange about the True Spill continent, they couldn't force their way in. Compared to these guards, Bai Xing and Chu Yufei were more worried that this matter would be exposed. If that happened, the two of them would no longer be able to stay in the Chu family. Thus, after she realized that something was wrong, she immediately turned around and headed to the Star Alliance. She wanted to inquire about the True Spill continent before doing anything else. After arriving at Star City, she learned that the True Spill continent had already been protected by the Star Alliance. Not only that, but that slut Hu Yenyang and those people from the True Spill continent had a very high status in the Star Alliance. They were protected by the Star Alliance. Damn it. Bai Xing's complexion was ugly. She didn't expect that Hu Yenyang and the others would have such a great fortune. The True Spill continent was only a low-level continent. When she and Chu Tianyi left this place, no one knew of this continent. Even if he mentioned it to others, they would have the same contemptuous expression on their faces. He didn't think that after so many years, the True Spill continent would become famous in the Star Wilderness. Not only that, even Hu Yenyang and the others benefited from it. In that case, how was she going to deal with Hu Yenyang and the others? She didn't care about the others, but Hu Yenyang, her family, and everyone else in the far west wilderness who knew about her past with them must die. Otherwise, how could she be at ease? But at this time, True Spill continent and Hu Yenyang were being protected by the people of the Star Alliance. If she forcefully killed him, she was afraid that it would immediately attract the attention of the Star Alliance. At that time, unless everyone in the star-desolate region was annihilated, it would be impossible to cover up this matter. And once the Chu family found out about this, she would be finished. As Bai Xing thought this, her heart was suddenly filled with hatred. At this time, she heard the conversation of the people around her. "Hey, did you guys hear? The young miss was driven out by the Liu family." Ah, this is so funny. Chapter 3055. Didn't you say that family Ji young master was a good man? He was handsome, strong, and had been engaged to her since they were young. But after she climbed up to the Liu family, she immediately turned her back on him. She deliberately humiliated him at the marriage proposal banquet, and even spread the word that he was a waste. Finally, she was slapped in the face. Now he has been kicked out by the Liu clan. This is the consequence of being greedy. That's right. I heard that the Liu family had received some good news. The young miss thought that they were going to discuss her marriage with the Liu family's young master. She hurriedly brought the people from the Star Alliance over, but they were all thrown out. Oh my God. You didn't see that scene. It was really shameful. Now the whole street is talking about her and the Liu family. The people from the Star Alliance's faction don't even dare to go out. A group of people hurriedly walked past Bai Xing and the others talking about Mo Zhuling. A few days ago he was thrown out of the Liu family's gate. The news had already spread throughout Star City. If it weren't for the fact that the Liu family was involved in this matter, the news would have spread throughout the entire Star-desolate domain. Mo Zhuling had done one disgraceful thing after another. Everyone was used to talking about her after dinner. The people from the Star Alliance's faction were too lazy to care about her. They simply didn't forbid the news from spreading. After hearing these words, Bai Xing's eyes narrowed. Young miss? Star Alliance's young miss? On the way to Star City, Bai Xing also heard a lot about Mo Zhuling. But at that time she was too lazy to pay attention to it. She was only focused on the true spill continent. Now that she heard his words, her mind started to work. The people of the true spill continent were being protected by the people from the Star Alliance. She definitely couldn't make any more moves. Otherwise it would be troublesome if the Chu clan found out about it. However, just because she couldn't make a move didn't mean that others couldn't. Especially since this young lady of the Star Alliance was a member of the Star Alliance. Her status was high enough. With that thought in mind, Bai Xing immediately sent someone to inquire about Mo Zhuling. Soon, the results of the investigation were presented to her. Bai Xing was even happier when she found out that it was related to Mo Zhuling. I didn't think that this Mo Zhuling would have a grudge with someone from the true spill continent. Very good. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. She was really sleepy when someone handed her a pillow. She originally wanted to move against those from the true spill continent, but she never thought that the person she found would also have a grudge against those from the true spill continent. If that was the case, it would be perfect. Arrange for it immediately. I want to meet Mo Zhuling. Bai Xing was very pleased with herself. According to Mo Zhuling's current situation and the degree of hatred he had towards the people of the true spill continent, he would definitely agree to cooperate with her. At that time, they would be able to quietly eliminate those people from the true spill continent. Who would know that it was them? As Bai Xing thought this, she suddenly laughed in her heart. On the other side, as Chu Yufei looked at the name Luo Qingtong, she didn't know why, but the name Luo Xiaoqi suddenly flashed through her mind. This Luo Qingtong was the same as Chu Lingfeng. They both came from the true spill continent. Could she be that Luo Xiaoqi? Chapter 3056. Because a man and a woman, how could they be the same person? What's more, although Luo Qingtong and Luo Xiaoqi both had the surname Luo, but one was doing well in the heavenly wind region, and the other was a lowly person in a low-level star region. Between the two there was no similarity at all. Even if it was a woman dressed as a man, it was impossible. As Chu Yufei thought of this, she immediately threw this matter to the back of her mind. Instead, she looked forward to the beautiful life in the future. After getting rid of those people in the true spill continent, she and her mother would no longer need to worry about their identity and status in the Chu family. As for Chu Lingfeng, that big fool, with her mother's identity as the patriarch's savior, even if he didn't like them, he wouldn't be able to do anything to them. As she thought of this, she smiled smugly. While the two were thinking this, on the other side Luo Qingtong had also returned to the star wilderness. Seeing the spiritual energy in front of them become thinner, Yin Yang looked at Luo Qingtong and asked, "Master, are we going directly back to the true spill continent? Do you want to go back to Star City to take a look?" "No need." Luo Qingtong thought for a moment and shook her head. "There's nothing going on in Star City. When the time comes, you can send a message to Xiao Xiao and the others. Tell them that we're back." Elder Feng and the others were on the Star Alliance's side, and the Dark Arena had been handed over to them to take care of. With their strength, they were not inferior to the Star Alliance's Alliance Master. Sooner or later, the Star Alliance's side would be Luo Qingtong's. As for Mo Zhuling and the Lu family, after Luo Qingtong finished the matters in the true spill continent, she would deal with them. Yin Yang nodded. At this time Luo Qingtong turned to look at Chu Tianyi and asked, "How is it? Your injury?" After returning to the true spill continent, Luo Qingtong would begin to raise the level of the true spill continent as well as connect it to the Tuanzi's world. Chu Tianyi was the most important part, so he couldn't afford to make any mistakes here. "It's all right." Chu Tianyi's voice was concise. Hearing this, Yin Yang immediately gave him a cold snort. Who was the one who was crying out in pain in front of her, looking like he was about to die? Yin Yang was so angry that she clenched her teeth when she thought about how she had cried for a long time while looking at his injuries and how he had held her in his arms to comfort her. This bastard, why didn't he just die from the pain? Yin Yang felt that she should not have any sympathy for the other party. Why did she give him the medicine that her master gave her? In the end, this man didn't use it at all. He even hid the medicine and said that it was a token of love from her. How shameless could he be? While Yin Yang was gritting her teeth in anger, Chu Tianyi was also very depressed. If he could, he didn't want to expose his injury. In fact, it was nothing serious. However, Luo Qingtong's medical skills were amazing. If he lied, she would definitely see through it. Chu Tianyi could only tell the truth. Otherwise, he would have pretended for a few more days. Yin Yang's thoughtfulness and gentleness were really rare. Unfortunately, all of his lies were exposed this time. Let me see. Luo Qingtong was still not relieved. Chu Tiany's strength couldn't be damaged too much. Otherwise, when the core of the true spill continent and the core of the abandoned continent merged, it would fail. Luo Qingtong didn't know what the result would be. Not to mention that if the true spill continent couldn't be upgraded, then her idea of connecting it with the Tuanzi's world would be in vain. Chapter 3057. Lin Mingya didn't seem to mind. She stretched out her hand. Luo Qingtong pressed Chu Tiany's wrist. After checking for a while, she suddenly looked at him. "There's something wrong with your injuries." Luo Qingtong couldn't describe that strange feeling. Chu Tiany's injuries were no longer that serious. Previously, he had been burned by the Yin Demon King's attack. His injuries seemed to be much more serious than this. Not only that, the strength in his body had recovered very well. From the looks of it, there was nothing wrong with this. But for some reason, after Luo Qingtong pressed Chu Tiany's pulse, she felt that something was wrong. Hearing her words, Yen Yang, who had been glaring at Chu Tiany, was stunned. Chu Tiany was also clearly taken aback. There was something wrong with his injuries? But all this time, his injuries had been recovering in this way. And this time, the Yin Demon King's power had a corrosive effect. Therefore, his internal injuries healed more slowly. If it had been any other time, his injuries would have healed long ago. As Chu Tiany thought of this, he subconsciously glanced at Yen Yang. Could it be that Luo Qingtong saw the conflict between him and Yen Yang, so she deliberately pushed him and said that there was something wrong with his injuries so that Yen Yang wouldn't be so angry with him? As Chu Tiany thought of this, he suddenly felt that selling himself to Luo Qingtong was a good choice. At least she knew to speak up for him at the crucial moment. As he cast a grateful glance at Luo Qingtong, Yen Yang, who was on the other side, was also a little hesitant. Although she felt that Luo Qingtong wouldn't deliberately say that there was something wrong with Chu Tiany's injuries in order to help Chu Tiany, everything was too coincidental. She was so angry with Chu Tiany, but Luo Qingtong said that there was something wrong with Chu Tiany's injury. Thinking about it, she suddenly frowned and asked Luo Qingtong, "Master, what's wrong with his injury?" "I don't know." Luo Qingtong frowned slightly and said frankly, "My blood pupil hasn't recovered yet. I can't see it for the time being." Luo Qingtong could only vaguely see that there was something wrong with Chu Tiany's injury, but she couldn't find out what the problem was. The main reason was that Chu Tiany had a special physique, and the Yin Demon King's baleful Yin Qi wasn't an ordinary power. Therefore, when the two were mixed together, Luo Qingtong couldn't come to a conclusion. Fortunately, her blood-red eyes were about to recover. Once he returned to the true spill continent, he would be able to rest for a while. Luo Qingtong always felt that the exhaustion of her blood-red eyes was a bit strange. In the past, every time her power was exhausted, it would quickly recover. Why was it so slow this time? Was it because she had lent too much power to Ji Feiyu this time? Luo Qingtong didn't use this eye technique much in her previous life, so she wasn't sure if this was the reason. But it didn't matter. Anyway, it would recover soon. Thinking this, she didn't care too much about it. She only told Chu Tiany that she would wait until they returned to the true spill continent to let him have a look. Luo Qingtong's original intention was to wait until they returned to the true spill continent and then use her blood-red eyes to let him have a look. Chu Tiany misunderstood Luo Qingtong's meaning. He thought that she was really looking for a reason to stall for time so that Yen Yang would calm down. Suddenly, he looked at her with even more gratitude. Yen Yang's master was really good. Chapter 3058. When Yen Yang saw his exaggerated performance, the little bit of doubt and worry she had disappeared. She hated that she couldn't raise her hand and beat him up. However, she also misunderstood Luo Qingtong's intentions. She thought that the other party didn't want her and Chu Tiany to become too stiff. Therefore, even though she was full of anger, she didn't do anything. When Chu Tiany saw her reaction, he thought that Luo Qingtong's words had worked. He immediately put on an even more pitiful act. The group of people made a ruckus as they rushed towards the true spill continent. At this time in the Star Alliance, Mo Zhuling stayed in her room. She felt that there was nothing left to live for. She sat on her bed in a daze. Her clothes were messy and her hair was disheveled. It seemed that she hadn't washed for more than 10 days. The room was a complete mess. She didn't know how long it had been since the room was cleaned. On the table there was some food scattered around. It already emitted a disgusting stench. Mo Zhuling had stayed in this room for who knows how many days. Ever since she was driven out of the mansion by the Liu family and thrown back to the courtyard of the Star Alliance, she had been living a life worse than death in this room. Those people from the Star Alliance's Alliance Masters faction, who had been turned upside down by her, hated that they couldn't eat her blood and dig out her flesh. Emo Zhuling had been so arrogant before. Now that she was abandoned by the Liu family, the backlash was even more severe. Everyone was trying their best to hit her when she was down. Emo Zhuling, the young miss of the Star Alliance, was living a life worse than a beggar on the roadside. Even the beggars on the roadside could find food to eat and clothes to wear. However, Emo Zhuling's entire mansion was her enemy. Those servant girls who had been bullied and abused by her before, when they saw her in trouble, hurriedly ran over to deal with her. As for the Star Alliance's Alliance Masters faction, they didn't care at all. Emo Zhuling was forced to eat swill and drink urine. He was ordered to crawl on the ground like a dog. Everything that she had done to those maidservants before was now retribution on her. Emo Zhuling could do nothing about it. Because no matter how she called out, the black fog that she had pinned her hopes on never appeared. She didn't know if he would appear again in the future. What would she do if the other party never appeared again? Emo Zhuling could not believe it. Her heart was anxious and hateful, but there was nothing she could do. At this moment, a group of people walked into the room she was in. Miss Star Alliance? Shirahoshi looked at the woman on the opposite bed in surprise. She was like a lunatic. This woman was the Miss of the Star Alliance, the one who had a grudge with the people of True Spill Continent? How did she become like this? Was she crazy? If she was crazy, then she would have to find someone else to cooperate with. However, besides Emo Zhuling, there was no one else in the Star Alliance who had such a strong hatred for the people of True Spill Continent. When Bai Xing's voice sounded, Emo Zhuling instantly looked at her with vigilance. He coldly said, "Who are you people?" Her eyes were filled with bone-deep hatred. In the past few days, those maidservants who hated her to the bone would often lead different men to her residence. The mansion she was in was not the residence of the Miss of the Star Alliance. It was clearly a public brothel. As long as others were willing, they could come and kiss her. Chapter 3059. However, after Bai Xing and the others explained their intentions, she suddenly laughed out loud. "Ah, you want me to help you deal with the people of True Spill Continent? Just based on my current appearance? Do you think that's possible?" Emo Zhuling's voice was filled with mockery. Bai Xing's expression was indifferent. "Don't worry about whether or not it's possible. If you can't do it, then we will naturally help you. But to the outside world, all of this is your own doing." After discovering that Emo Zhuling wasn't crazy, Bai Xing immediately relaxed and began to discuss conditions with her. She didn't need Emo Zhuling to do anything, she only needed her name. As long as everything was done in Emo Zhuling's name, what did anything else have to do with them? Ah, good. Emo Zhuling's heart was filled with hatred. She looked at Bai Xing and the others. She didn't even bother to ask who they were or why they wanted to deal with the people of True Spill Continent. She only needed to know that they had a grudge against True Spill Continent. "Ah, the heavens haven't forsaken me yet. Luo Qingtong Liu, just you wait." Emo Zhuling's expression was ferocious. She had already placed all of her debts on Luo Qingtong and the Liu family. In her opinion, if it weren't for Luo Qingtong stealing her chance to be with Yi Qianxian, how could she have ended up like this? She had abandoned Ji Feiyu and hooked up with the Liu family. Wasn't it all to deal with Luo Qingtong? That slut, if it weren't for her, she wouldn't have ended up like this. Emo Zhuling didn't reflect on her actions. She only thought that she could have had a better life. It was Luo Qingtong and those people from True Spill Continent who had ruined her chance. Moreover, those people from True Spill Continent, those sluts, they were clearly the lowest of the low, and yet they dared to oppose her in the Star Alliance. If that wasn't the case, why would she be looked down upon at the proposal banquet and even be despised by Lu Yu? It's their fault. It's all their fault. And those people from the Liu family, they were all cheese. Emo Zhuling did not believe that Lu Yu hated him just because of what happened at the proposal banquet. She must have casually made up a reason that allowed him to find some sort of treasure in the True Spill Continent. There was actually a treasure in that shabby and lowly place. *it, so that time when she casually threatened that man, she really hit his soft spot. If she knew this would happen, then she would have had the Black Fog attack True Spill Continent from the very start. Emo Zhuling would be filled with regret. She wasn't stupid. After realizing that Lu Yu might have been using her all this time, she immediately realized that Lu Yu and the others were most likely aiming for the True Spill Continent. And the lie that she casually made up might have allowed them to find something in the True Spill Continent. Why did fate always favor that slut Luo Qingtong? If she had discovered this earlier, things would have developed in a different direction. Emo Juling's heart was filled with hatred. But in front of Bai Xing and the others, he didn't mention a single word. She wanted to hide this matter. When the time came, she would take the treasure by herself. She would let these people fight to the death with the Lu family and those from True Spill Continent. As Emo Juling thought this, he suddenly sneered and agreed to Bai Xing's request. Chapter 3060. Bai Xing and the others didn't care about these things. She didn't put the Lu family in her eyes at all. It was just a family from the 7-star field. They could be destroyed at will. Therefore he didn't hesitate and agreed to this matter. After Emo Juling saw them agree, she immediately sneered. She didn't let Bai Xing and the others immediately deal with the Lu family. Instead she told them to go back and wait for news. Once they could act, she would naturally tell them. Bai Xing frowned. She didn't know what Emo Juling wanted to do. Don't you want to deal with the Lu family? She looked at Emo Juling. Of course I want to deal with them, but not now. Emo Juling sneered. How could she possibly deal with the Lu family at this time? Lu Yu and the others had just received news about the True Spill Continent and hadn't had time to act yet. He was going to wipe them out. Then would the one who obtained the treasure be Bai Xing and the others or herself? Moreover, Lu Yu and the others had treated her so badly. How could Emo Juling let them die so easily? She wanted them to die with nothing and regret. In Emo Juling's heart, she already had an incomparably sinister and ruthless plan. However, she didn't tell Bai Xing and the others. Instead, she found another reason and excuse. You people are so strong, but you don't dare to face the people of the True Spill Continent. I naturally have to think about my future. I will deal with the people of the True Spill Continent. But the Lu family also has enmity with the people of the True Spill Continent. Let them rush to the front. It will be good for you and me. As soon as she said this, Bai Xing and the others immediately felt that there was no problem. After all, Emo Juling's idea was correct. With their strength, it was normal for her to have misgivings. However, her thoughts were so thoughtful. How could she have fallen to such a state before? Bai Xing was surprised. Emo Juling looked at her with eyes full of hatred. How did she end up in such a state? Naturally, it was because of Luo Qingtong. That bitch. He would never let her off. Emo Juling's eyes were cold as he dismissed Bai Xing and the others. When the latter left, he left behind 2 guards of the Chu clan to protect her. At the same time, it was convenient for her to contact him. Emo Juling left the 2 Chu clan guards in his room. Then he left the mansion in a disheveled state. In the Lu family, Lu Yu, Uncle Fong, and the others were discussing how to deal with the people of the True Spill Continent and find out the whereabouts of the Sector Beast. Just then, someone came to report that Emo Juling had arrived. That woman still dares to come here again? Lu Yu sneered. He knew all about what Emo Juling had encountered in the mansion, and he was never tired of it. If it weren't for his permission and acquiescence, how could the people of the Star Alliance's Alliance Master and those maids attack Emo Juling so recklessly? Now that he heard that Emo Juling had come to see him, he couldn't help but feel that it was ridiculous. It seems that she hasn't learned her lesson in the Lu family. Lu Yu sneered. He was about to order the messenger to send Emo Juling out again. Just then the servant said, "Young master, she said that she knows who has the thing you are looking for." Chapter 3061. He looked at Uncle Fong and the others. Uncle Fong and the others didn't think it was possible. However, they were only able to find out about the Sector Beast with Emo Juling's help. Even if she didn't know what they were looking for, she might be able to provide them with some clues that would save them some effort. Also, if they could determine the whereabouts of the Sector Beast, they would be able to obtain it without anyone knowing. As they thought about this, they said to Lu Yu, "Young master, why don't you meet her? She might be of some use." Lu Yu was thinking the same thing. Seeing that Uncle Fong and the others all agreed, he nodded and said to the person who came to report, "Okay, call her in." He already knew what was going on with the Sector Beast. If Emo Juling still wanted to deceive him or use him, he would let her know what it meant to be worse than death. Emo Juling sneered when she was summoned by Lu Yu. She was going to Luo Qingtong Lu Yu and the others. She was going to destroy them all. She walked in, not bothering to hide her filth and disgust. She knew that this was the best way to dispel the doubts in Lu Yu and the others' hearts. Otherwise, why would Lu Yu and the others believe her when she suddenly became clean and confident? Her eyes flashed with mockery and viciousness. Then she followed the gatekeeper and entered the Lu manor. "Emo Juling, what is it? Just say it." Lu Yu looked at Emo Juling indifferently. He didn't even bother to put on an act. Mo Zhuling's appearance was especially disgusting. Looking at his expression, Mo Zhuling sneered in his heart. However, on the surface she said timidly, "Young master, I know I was wrong. I've really been tortured these days. Please be magnanimous and don't torture me anymore. I am willing to tell you everything I know." "Oh." Lu Yu sneered and looked at her. "What can you tell me?" He wanted to test Mo Zhuling. The latter said without hesitation, "You must be looking for that treasure in the True Spill continent, right? I originally thought that it was just an unremarkable accident. However, I didn't expect that you would really find something there. Lu Yu, you approached me because of that, right?" Mo Zhuling sneered inwardly. Previously when Lu Yu was with her he said so many vows of eternal love, but in the end it was all bullshit. But it didn't matter. She still had to thank them. Otherwise she wouldn't have known that True Spill continent was actually hiding such great treasures. Mo Zhuling recalled the scene when he saw Luo Qingtong in the True Spill continent. If she guessed correctly, the thing that Lu Yu and the others were looking for was in Luo Qingtong's hands. Even if it wasn't in her hands, it definitely had something to do with her. As she thought of this, she immediately said to Lu Yu, "I don't know what you're looking for. But since you've heard my description, you must have obtained some harvests in the True Spill continent. Then the owner of that thing should be Luo Qingtong." Of course, even if it wasn't or if it had nothing to do with Luo Qingtong, she would still make Lu Yu and the others believe that the thing was in Luo Qingtong's hands. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.